Welcome to PBJ on ETB for another exciting episode where we're here to learn the sticky and sweet truth of the Scriptures. Sticky because we want to hold on to it, and sweet because it makes our lives better. Tonight we want to introduce a completely new segment with our friend Natalie, and it's going to be called High Fives with Natalie. So we're going to go to Natalie on location right now. Take it away, Natalie.
Thank you, PBJ. Today I want to give a high five to Brett Byer for being punctual. He's the one who makes our church bell ring on time every Sunday.
Thank you, Natalie. It's always great to hear how people are blessing people behind the scenes here at church. We look forward to hearing from you again next week. Well, as you all know, every week when we have one of these episodes, I'm going to bring a special friend. And this week, I brought my special friend, Abram. You probably read about him when you were reading the Bible this week. But Abram, just take a moment. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what's happening in your life.
Thanks, PBJ. Yes, I was 75 years old, living peacefully in the land of Haran. And a God who I'd never heard from before reached out to me, and at 75 years old, called me into a land called Canaan and promised me many things.
Well, he gave you many promises. Like, what were some of those promises?
He said I'd be a great nation. My name would be great, and I'd be a blessing to others.
A great nation, your name would be great, and you're going to be a blessing to others. Wow, those are some great promises. So when he's talking about you being a great nation, what does that look like?
Well, he promised that I'd have descendants like the stars.
Like the stars
like
in the sky?
Stars in the sky.
Well, I've gone out and tried to count the stars, and I can't really ever count beyond a bajillion. And you're going to have more descendants than that?
That's right, PBJ.
Wow, that's amazing. And did you believe God?
I did.
And what do we call that?
We call believing God faith.
Faith. And what was God's response to you when you believed him?
God counted my faith as righteousness.
Wow, that's incredible. And I read, as I was reading the Bible this week, that as you went to these strange places, that God promised to be a shield for you. What did that mean?
It means that he'd protect me.
He'd protect you because you didn't know exactly what you were going to come up against in this strange land.
That's right. It was a scary new land that I'd never been to before. And as a 75-year-old man who was believing a God who I'd never met before and many promises, I didn't know what would happen.
And as far as I can tell, too, you didn't take a lot of people with you. I think you took Sarai, your wife. You took Lot, your nephew, and then some people that were kind of from your household. So there weren't a lot there to go with you. Well, with all these descendants promised to you, there seems to be one thing missing. You don't have any children.
I did not have any children, and we were getting old.
Well, it's obvious you were getting old. I mean, you said you were 75 when you left, and the clock keeps ticking, keeps clicking for Sarai as well. But God said you guys were going to have a baby, right?
That's right. She said we together would have a baby.
And that didn't happen for some time, did it? And in the meantime, what happened?
Well, Sarai got a little impatient and didn't think that she was a candidate to have a baby anymore because of her old age, and she didn't want to take a birthing class at 90 years old, so she gave me my servant, Hagar, to have a baby with.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I'm going to ask the question again now. So things took a little bit longer in terms of having this baby than you thought. So what kind of action did Sarai take?
She gave me Hagar, and we had a son named Ishmael.
You had a son named Ishmael. And so when you had that son, how did things work out with the family then?
Well, Sarai got upset with Hagar, and there was a lot of fighting going on.
There was a lot of fighting going on. And then God took you back outside, and he made a promise to you. It seemed like a repeat promise. What was that?
He did. He told me I'd be the father of many nations.
Father of many nations? A matter of fact, don't be so bashful here. He actually changed your name from Abram to Abraham.
That's right.
Because you were going to be the father of many nations. And that whole Hagar thing wasn't the plan, was it?
No, I don't think that was a great idea.
Yeah, you know, when we take things into our own hands and don't do things the way God said to do them, it tends to create some trouble, doesn't it?
It definitely does.
So God reinforced the promises he'd already made to you, and he gave a covenant to you. And a covenant is an agreement that you have, and people actually received a sign of this covenant to show that they belonged to God. And that was very significant in your life and in the lives of your entire household. You know, Abraham, it just makes me ask the question, you practice so much faith, can we today have the same kind of faith as you did?
Yes.
Well,
Simply have the same faith as I did and believe in God. Believe in what he has for you.
Yeah, because one of the things about your faith, Abraham, you didn't have anything really to look back on. This was all new to you, and yet you continued to trust and trust. Sometimes you wavered a little bit, but ultimately you did trust God for the promises that he had for you. So when God said to you, I will be your God, what should our response be?
We should respond, we will be your people.
And so that is still being spoken today. God reminds us that he will be our God, and our response needs to be, we will be your people. Wow. So you go back and tell Sarai, the whole Hagar thing was not a good idea. It's not working out. God actually means what he said. He said that we're going to have our own baby. How did Sarai respond?
To tell you the truth, PBJ, she laughed.
She laughed. Well, on that note, I think we need to bring this episode to an end with Sarai laughing. And we'll have to pick this story up next week. But we know at the end of every one of these episodes, we need to ask some questions. Questions like, what did we learn about God in this episode? Are there any other questions, Abram, we should ask?
What did you learn about Jesus, about yourself?
What did we learn about ourselves and Jesus? And what did we learn about living? And today we learned a lot about faith and what it means to practice faith. And so when we answer those questions, then it's so important that you do this alone or do this with your family, but we need to pray about what we just read. So everyone out there, keep reading the scriptures, the sticky and sweet truth of the Bible, and you'll find out what a blessing that is. And by all means, as the week progresses, don't forget to
read your Bible.
See you next week.